A geologist is someone or a scientist who studies rocks. They can tell you the minerals that are contained therein. We like saying diamonds are a girl's best friend. In my profession, we're able not only to find minerals and precious metals, but also energy resources that are hidden beneath the earth. Geology is a study of rocks, and not just rocks on Earth, even the planets. So that is called planetary geology. Drilling is the riskiest and also very expensive.
Hi, and welcome to this edition of the Energy Post podcast, where all the big conversations on energy in Africa happen. They happen right here in KenGen. My name is Frank, and I'll be your host.
My name is Judith Mbogo. We are excited to have you back in this episode, and I'm your co-host for the Energy Post podcast.
All right, you've heard about us discussing about turbines. We've talked about power planting. We've talked about all those well gathering systems in our carrier. We even talked about the IT systems that drive these power stations. But never have we spoken about the geologists, the people who go deep within the earth crust to discover what lies in there, analyze them, and give those problems names before then it becomes an information that can be put together to then lead the people who are going to drill the wells. It is from here that then we are able to run and drill the soil to begin the process of geothermal making. Joining us on set today is those people who are in the crust of this matter, and that is Dr. Anna Mwangi. Welcome on stage.
Thank you so much.
Who is Dr. Anna Mwangi?
Anna Mwangi is a mother of one, a wonderful young boy. And also I am a scientist. So I like to call myself a geologist and a geophysicist. And a geologist is someone or a scientist who studies rocks. They can tell you the minerals that are contained therein. We like saying diamonds are a girl's best friend. So in my profession, we're able not only to find minerals and precious metals, but also energy resources that are hidden beneath the earth. So that and much more. So geology is a study of rocks, and not just rocks on Earth, even the planets. So that is called planetary geology. But to help us understand more about the geology and the subsurface, we employ other methods and the physics. And so physics, the techniques and the principles of physics are used to help us decode the subsurface rocks.
I think we'll get deeper into that, but for now, I want to throw you back. Let's go back to where Anna Mwangi started. Yes. What was it like growing up?
I had a very beautiful childhood, like most Kenyans. I grew up in Limuru, the cold Limuru front, and I went to a nice primary school called Bibirioni Primary School. And in class 8, I changed to Limuru Model Primary School. The difference between the schools is that one was a polling station school, and where I finished was a group of schools in class 8. So I had the whole full spectrum of a Kenyan kid. In my school, we did the best we could with the resources that we had, and as naughty as every other village kid. And very interestingly, my mother was my teacher in my lower grades.
Take me back home. What was it like growing up? Which child were you? Were you the first or second? Or what were your siblings like?
Yeah.
How to hear about your parents?
Yes.
Drove them.
Yeah, so my parents were teachers. My father was a headmaster, but that was before I was born. My parents got married to each other in 1973, but they stayed 7 years without children. So my brother, the firstborn, came in 1980, David and Duarte, and then secondborn 1981, that's Moses Kangebe, and I'm the thirdborn, Anna Mwangi, but my name actually is Hannah. She called me Hannah. Yes, Hannah Werimo Mwangi. And I have a last born who was born 86, Jeremiah Kamau. And he's like my baby. So growing up, I've always been like the guardian. And my mother more like the sister. So growing up, I'm the only girl in the family. My brothers treated me very well. Actually, too well. Because, of a protectionism. And my dad and my mother, I felt they gave me quite the attention as a girl and I guess a middle child. So we all went to the same primary school. Playing in the mud was a thing, especially when it is raining. And the cold remuro, those were the fights used to have with mother, because you're supposed to have the hoodie, what you call them, boshori, that one. Yeah, you're supposed to have that 100% of the time, and none of us wanted to. And when it is raining, we'd go skiing in the mud. And our mud is quite thick. And thank God we didn't have a car, because I don't know how we would have navigated in and out of the village. And then one of the things I used to like was anytime I'm set outside to look at the skies, because I used to have a lot of fears as a child, especially of the dark. But the skies, I would just observe the stars and I'll navigate to where, go get a piece of wood or something from outside. But I never liked those ventures to go at night. So I think that's where my love for geology, I didn't know geology existed, but I think early on I could identify it with the stars. I know the constellation of my home, where each constellation sort of is by position when I look up in the sky. The other interesting thing that happened growing up is that we didn't have piped water. Well, the entire village didn't. So we had a point source about 2 kilometers away. So part of the after-school activity was to go fetch water in bath. Yes. And my brothers were so innovative that they made a mini wheelbarrow.
Okay.
Yes, actually I saw a wheelbarrow, I think in class 8, like when we bought one, the actual one from the hardware. So my brothers used to use wood. We used to have trees at home. So my mother would get people to cut and make wood, and they would make that makeshift. And they would
With
get
a
the
small wheel.
Use a small
I
wheel.
remember those.
And that was what we used to carry the
Yeah.
water with. And I didn't like that part because it was hard work. Yeah, but if you have water for washing, cleaning and all that, so it used to bother me that, we always have to do that. Well, I enjoyed playing, but the playing time would be reduced because most of it you have to do these chores. And my mother couldn't go to the well. It's not a well, but there's a tap, the local tap. And I remember at one time, I think it was 93, there was scarcity of water. And we had a line. People had to wake up like at 3, 4 a.m. to actually go line and get the water. So it was a big problem in the area. Yeah. So I think those little tidbits of my life are the ones that made me
Formed
actually
you.
find my way into geology. I didn't know it was a subject.
To become this diamond. So high school and university?
High school, I went to Loreto Kiambu school. After the group of schools, the 1 year, I think that's where I had serious polishing, because I realized that there's a difference between R and L in that school, because I used to speak and everybody laughs. And I had no idea why. It's because I think I was this village girl and my diction was off. So it made me catch up. It also made me independent, because whereas in the former school, I used to walk just 1.5 kilometers to school. Now, this one I needed to go to the local bus stop. We used to have the matatus. You know the matatus?
Yes.
The one that looks
face
like a
each other.
pickup. It's me. Yeah. And I would have to take that on my own to school. I feared it first few days, but after that, I was able to be commuting every day to school. And then I have to be on time. Means I wake up and from my village, it's called Ngarariga, and then I go to Limuru town. So I think that made me a bit exposed. Also be independent. At least socialize, say hi to people in the morning. And what was interesting was, as I'm going the opposite direction, my friends are going the other side, So that was quite interesting for that class 8. And then the other thing I remember is that I understood how to save money, because I discovered a shortcut to school. So in the evening, instead of taking the matatu home, I would just walk the shortcut. So I was quite rich as a kid. Yeah, because I would save my bus fare. And I think the most productive use I did was to buy sweets that started to damage my teeth. So that was not a good savings plan. Yeah, but I think that's when also my saving culture started. I felt like I was given some sort of keys to independence. Remember at home, I feel like they were really so taking care of me in that way. So I got my independence and sort of proved myself that she can actually do something on her own. I always used to be paired up with my brother. You go help Warimo to do that. Go help Warimo to do that. So at least I got to do that on my own.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, where I want you to get us to is, when did you meet geology for the first time in life?
That's a very interesting story because in high school, when I went to Loreto, there was another upgrade. The girls I met were quite amazing. So they also helped me polish my communication. And also, of course, the stories of Nairobi, because most of the girls were coming from Nairobi. But at school, actually, in Form 2, is when I started getting my academic prowess. And then my dad actually was a PTA member and a chair.
Okay.
He was larger than life and he was an educationist. So from day one in Form 1, he was elected the chair. So that was a pressure on me to perform academically because my father is right there. And with his expectations and his love for me, it just made me want not to let him down. So Form 2, I read a book, Gifted Hands. I think in my generation, we read that book, Ben Carson, yeah. So what did I want to be? A neurosurgeon. So the whole entire high school, I wanted to be a medical doctor and specifically try and be like Ben Carson. So that made me want to aim for university. So I started learning which university offers what medicine course. So that's when University of Nairobi, Moi University, and the cutoff points. Yes, so I wanted to be a medical doctor. But also I had doubts because I'm not a very strong person when I see blood. Yeah. I couldn't even be there on Christmas when they are slaughtering the goat. Yeah. I still haven't slaughtered any chicken in my life. Yes, so I had doubts for my personality and the career choice. So anyway, but at that point it was working for me because it was a motivator. And I think I also considered Tanzania in case I don't make the cutoff points. Maybe I can go to Tanzania or Makerere or something for university. So I performed and got a B+. And I was admitted in University of Nairobi. The other thing I wanted to do, because I was a village girl and our home is in Limuru, I wanted to study in Nairobi. All my courses, we had 4 electives. All the 4 courses were in the University of Nairobi. So one was, I think the last one was the BSc Statistics. I was just filling courses just to make sure also I'm in University of Nairobi.
So that was
but
your
of
first
course,
time
medicine.
to be in Nairobi now?
Yes.
Okay.
No, we are filling the courses in high school. Yes. I still, Nairobi used to be the visits. We didn't have a relative in Nairobi to visit, but we used to pass through Nairobi going to Murang'a to my grandmother's. So I would see the University of Nairobi Library. And of course, my mother would be pointing out in the matatu. So there is that landmark, you know, as we, the Koja, that's where we were getting other matatus and all that. So that's the only Nairobi I knew, and being held the hand. At the university, I was admitted for Bachelor of Science. It used to be called General.
Yes.
And so I had to do courses. Now I was like, okay, I was already over the medicine thing because I knew I couldn't. So this time I wanted to be a banker. I wanted to wear the suits, actually almost like what I'm wearing today. I wanted to wear suits, yes. I wanted to wear suits and look all nice and polished with my long hair and all that, and high heels. So I wanted to be a bank manager, specifically for Barclays, which is now Absa.
Absa, yes.
Yes. So I chose math and chemistry. So a major in math and a minor in chemistry. And I started my first year. So when I finished my first semester, I met up with my friend one day at around Stella Winja, and she was like, please, would you mind paying 500 for a trip to Mombasa? My department is going to a trip to the coast for learning geology, and, you know, we are few students and we need to fill up the bus to get the approval. I had 500 in my pocket, courtesy of my father, who used to come see me almost every day at the university. And I gave her to make sure I'm there. You know, I was very bossy because I with the geology students, I'll be like, you travel all the way. My friend was from Nyahururu. Actually, most people may know her, Anastasia. She's also a geologist like me. but I'm a geologist like her. She's the one who introduced me to geology. So I told her, she's from Nyahururu, and I told her, make sure I'm in that trip. And I used to be the chief persecutor for geologists, because I'd be like, you can't travel all the way from Nyahururu to the University of Nairobi and study stones. I used to say stones. Yeah, and the university at that time had the reputation of throwing rocks. Not very good during
So they all know
protests.
it.
Yes. Yeah, so then we went. The bus was full. We had so many students from different departments, and they were kind of rowdy. So during the stops, we used to drive a little bit. They stopped, get out. They're looking at rocks. Then at the horizon, I'm looking at what are they looking at. I don't see what is interesting in the horizon. So I started to join them, and so started to get what the sense of what they were studying. And then they would take the notes. I look at it. There are some terminologies that I couldn't tell. The faults, for me, the only fault I had known is not my fault. Yeah. So, the structures all the way to Mombasa, it was quite interesting. And I was like, you mean rocks have stories? And so that's what captivated me. To top it up, we went to San Marco. It's a place in the coast that the Italians used to send satellites into the sky. And I was home. I was like, remember this first story of the stars? And me thinking to be not an astronomer, but this fascination with the rockets and the stars and all that. I was like, if you study geology, you can also end up here. Because it was during the geology trip that I saw, San Marco, and my head was reading NASA. So that's time I just went back and said, I want to study this thing. And so I'm hard off to actually change courses.
So you had to move from Bachelor of Science to now geology.
Geology.
At what point in the university?
First year, second semester.
All right.
The professor who was leading the trip is Professor Mathu, quite renowned in structural geology. He thought I was actually one of his students because there were very few. So when I went to tell him I want to change courses, and he was also the chairman of the department, he said, what do you mean? You're not a geology student? But you were in my field trip. And I said, yeah. So what are you? What are you studying? And he was so amazed. I thought you were my student. He said, I don't think it's possible, but come with me. And he took me to Professor Okech, Opio Okech, who was a geologist and the dean of students. And I didn't talk. He talked on my behalf. So he listened and he said, okay, young girl, we have heard you. And he told me what I will do. I will add more courses of geology. And by second year, second semester, he'll allow me to drop the subject that I would want. On condition I pass all of them. So that's how I ended up realizing my path to being a geologist.
All the way graduating. And then how did you end up at KenGen?
After graduation, I got a scholarship. There was a project called Mawari, which was studying groundwater in Kenya, Ethiopia, and Djibouti. So they gave me a scholarship. 4 of us got a scholarship to study. So I did my master's immediately. And then KenGen advertised on the year I was supposed to graduate, 2008, and did my application. And this was like almost like a group application, because my friend still Anastasia was with me in the master's program. So we all applied. And I remember we were in our cubicles in the masters. Have you finished? Yes, and then we went and sent them. And there was a callback. And one, Sally Carol, took me through the interview with Gigi Moshemi, Dr. Simiu. It was quite fascinating.
So you went through the interview process, and finally you joined.
And I joined KenGen. I was a geophysicist 3, the kind of exposure that we got when we came in terms of science and the mentorship by what we call the greats, Dr. Simiu, Gigi Moshemi. They would put us in a room and they would just speak amongst themselves as peers, but the rest of us are learning. For every meeting, they will not have 2 people meeting, no. Maki will not speak, but they'll be talking. They talk about the 500 megawatts, the plan, G to G. I had them first in their meetings.
I like your story. It's so powerful. And there's something you've said that I'd want you maybe to say something brief on it.
Yeah.
The changeover from science to geologist.
Yeah.
People give stories of where they complete a whole degree and go and give their parents and tell them, this is for you.
Yeah.
Now let me go do my degree. How was it for your parents when you're doing that changeover? Did they support you? What was in their minds?
Yeah, I have very interesting parents because for some reason they used to trust what I say. So when I was doing the change, I remember I talked with my father. My father was more my mentor. My mother was my life mentor, but my father was more academic and career mentor and used to tell me to think big. So when I told him that, okay, first, for him, I'm sure it must have been strange because, well, I was at the university, so we used to have a 1-year layover before joining the university. Actually, it's 1.5 years. So the 1.5 years, I was making my trips to Nairobi from Limuru to do CPA at the Visions College. So so I was doing my section 4, and I wanted to combine it with math because my plan, I knew I was admitted to do the double math and chem. I would choose that when I came. And so combine that. And since I didn't make to join BCom, then to be my path to be the bank manager. So he had paid for that and also now paying for the university. And now in the second semester, I'm saying I'm changing because I went for a trip to Mombasa. Of course, he knew I went to Mombasa because he gave me also the pocket money for
500
it.
shillings.
500 shilling was the registration.
Okay.
So later when I went to, he used to come see me at the university anytime because he used to come for mass at St. Paul's. And sometimes he'll bring me fresh milk from our cow in the morning. The only thing he ever carried extra from his newspaper, but he did it for his daughter. So he used to bring me even a nice mukimo. Yeah. He would pack that for me, and after mass we'd meet. So he gave me pocket money to actually go for that trip. And then after the trip is when I'm telling him, hey, I want to change courses. He said, oh, so what is this geology? So I told him about it. By our next meeting, he knew more than me. So now he was now guiding me.
Okay.
Oh yeah, do you know in KenGen, my father was reading 3 newspapers every day. And so he was also very key person in investing in shares. So he was widely read. So he's the one who was now telling me what geologists do. And so I had to read also to keep up with my debates with him. So he was supportive, but also for me, I was like, I hope I know what I'm doing.
True.
Yeah. So, but my idea was NASA at this point because I was like, this is my shortcut to find my way to the United States. Now, not for neuroscience and neuro surgery, but now for the NASA thing. So I would say that for me, change is always welcome and change is inevitable. And I support even let's say young people, if they're going through a course and they feel they don't want it, change and follow your passion. And even when writing or making your applications, I start by asking, okay, do you really want this? Is it your passion? If somebody was not looking or forcing you to do something, is it something you'd pick up in your free time and read more on it? Yes. So that's what I believe. You have to have passion for your career, then you never work a day in your life.
Absolutely. So back to geophysics.
Yeah.
In simple terms, how do you read what's happening underneath the surface of the earth?
Yes. So geology, my trip to Mombasa made me understand the applications of geology. First, of course, the nice diamonds and rubies, and we saw them in the mines at the Savo. So I was like, so this is where all these things come from. So, but I was not more interested in the precious stones, but I was more interested in the groundwater situation because remember, my growing up, I was so tired looking for water. So I wanted to be now a hydrogeologist. And in fact, when I for my master's, you would see that I was admitted for hydrogeology kind of project, groundwater. So and when I was doing now my 4th year, we had a geophysics course, and I realized this is exactly what I need. I need to determine where is the water for drilling. At what point do we drill, and where is it we avoid to drill? So I now started going to application. So what I did was applied geophysics. So I take the physics and apply it, and I'm able to get results for what I'm looking for, which is the natural resource, which is the groundwater. And the groundwater will solve problems for many people. So that is why I liked geology, because it made me breach the gap between the needs of the society, and particularly drawing from my society, and my contribution to that. And then I think the other thing that was fascinating for me was that only God knows, because I felt I'm dealing with a science that only God knows. He creates the world, and so nobody has the real answer. So that open-endedness made me actually like geology. And to be able to interpret what others cannot, I like that part. Yes. So the geophysics is a tool that helps you to be able to study the subsurface. Now, a very good example, drawing back to medicine, if you break your arm and you go see a doctor, they'll not start treating you. Sorry, okay, first of all, go for an X-ray, and then you come back, then we'll talk.
Yeah.
So when you're there, the X-ray, you put your hands, first they tell you to remove your rings,
Metals,
etc., and then take an X-ray of your hand. So the X-ray, when you bring it to the doctor, they'll just find a window or a light and place that image over there. And they can see specifically how the breakage is like, the orientation, and even know how to advise how the cast will be put on, even the healing time. So if that is for the human body, that's exactly what we use. For example, here we're using the energy source, which is the X-ray. For us, we'll use electricity, electromagnetics, magnetics, the principles of seismology to be able to decode the rock layers and subsurface, not only at very shallow depths of like orders of meters, but also kilometers. Yeah. So that tells you, if you know what your target is, then you can be able to locate it without necessarily drilling. You can imagine if you go to the doctor and then he starts looking for the scalpel, and he's like, okay, so what you're gonna do, you'll cut and try and see, no. Yeah, so the imaging helps save you costs, pain, and money, time, to be able to resolve what is the issue. So that is what techniques like geophysics do.
So at what point does this work translate into generation of power?
So now the reason why KenGen came to look for human resources, and also from the university, and that application was because there was a target for, was it 3,000 megawatts at the time? I don't remember. 5,000 megawatts. So they needed human resources. They needed geologists to come and study the fields and fast track that process so that we could know where is the steam, because the steam now is the prime mover for the steam turbines. So us as geologists, we are really upstream on the exploration phases. Now, if you look at the development phase of geothermal, you need drilling is one of the heavy costs. The power plant, of course, it's a cost you'll recover because you already have steam at the wellhead. But drilling is the riskiest and also very expensive. Expensive in the sense that if you miss your target, you'll have sunk costs. So now that we have competent engineers and even the rigs, do they go drilling everywhere? No. They have to get advice from a team, and that is my team, and a team of geoscientists that go and study. For geophysics is one of the methods, but it's the powerful method for helping especially determine depths and orientation. But there's also the geologists now who study the structures and understand the interplay of the structures, and also the geochemist who tells about fluid movement and help help us understand the pathways. Because what we want a heat source, which is a magma body that is beneath the earth, which is heating up basically the kitchen. And then you need understand the host rock that has the groundwater and the groundwater interplay, because there's heat. So there's the way the water has the convectional movements. So you need to know, where is it uprising? Where is the outflows? You don't need to know the interplay of the structures. Some structures are barriers, some structures are transmitters. So you need to know all that so that you can understand the recharge, because it's a green process, but it's only green to what extent that you're able to extract and return, or the refund. That makes it a cyclic process. So the geophysicist and the geoscientist, because it's not one method, you have to integrate these data sets to come up with a conceptual model. So this conceptual model is the one that now helps us to understand where are the places to drill. So we keep on improving that.
I think what you're going to do, we are going to break this thing into part 1 and part 2. And now, as we are wrapping up the end of part 1, you left us somewhere halfway, because for us to call you Dr. Anna Mwangi, that means there must have been something that qualified you to be a doctor. So after your bachelor's degree, how did you proceed from there?
So I did my master's almost immediately and joined KenGen. So KenGen is my first and only employer, per se, after the project.
Those are 18 years.
Those are 18 years that I've worked at KenGen. Then I think after 5 years, an opportunity came up to join a PhD program, which had been postponing for like 3 years before. And at 5 years, I felt, okay, it's about time. Let me just do it. And there's pressure also from my father, because like, you're not done. I need a PhD. But first he had told me the condition, first get married, and then you can do the PhD. So I had the tick box, got married, and then went and pursued the PhD in America at University of Texas at El Paso. And
that's where you get your accent from.
I do have an accent. You haven't had my Kikuyu accent. It is there. Possibly when I speak Swahili. But I did my PhD and then came back to KenGen, was it 2018?
So what was your thesis on?
It was on geothermal fields. So I studied Olkaria and the Buru geothermal field.
All right. And I think our fellow listeners and viewers, that is where we're going to end this part 1 of the Energy Pulse podcast. When you come back on part 2 of this session, still with Dr. Anna Mwangi from the fields of Olkaria, we're now going to dive deep into the Earth's crust and look at the journey that KenGen has made over the years since 1952 to date in terms of developing geothermal and giving it to you as real power. My name is Frank, and I'm your host for the Energy Pulse podcast.